Here in the room you've got an extraordinary mixture of academics and economists and writers and thinkers and campaigners, and you've got some great journalists, and you've just got some great politicians, both young and old. And you all come from every corner of the country, but you've got one thing in common, which is that you all share the guts, the passion, the determination to build a different kind of country. So, huge thank you for coming along. As you will know, there is no such thing in Westminster as a free drink. Glasses, suits, gig tickets, maybe. Indeed, one of my colleagues messaged earlier this evening to say, do we now have to declare the results of the Tory leadership campaign a free gift as well? Although we've been judged of that. But this is in part a thank you to you, but it's also an ask. Because it's an incredible time to be here in this young parliament. But to change a country is a big feat. You know, if we get it right, we could change the lives of millions. But if we get it wrong, we will ruin the hopes of millions and salt the earth for those reformers and campaigners that come after us. And so that is why we really need your help on the journey ahead. What we are trying to do is big and difficult and complicated, and the prize is extraordinary, but there's an awful lot to get right along the way. So please get involved in this debate, please help us with this debate so that we can help here in this great economy build not just a wealthy democracy, but a democracy of wealth. So look, we're under no illusions about how difficult this is going to be, and that is why we need leaders and writers and politicians with great stature and inspiration, and that is why it's such an enormous honour for me to share a stage tonight with two of my great inspirations. They are people that I turn to time and time and time again for inspiration and thought leadership and just get up and go. So please join me in welcoming tonight Polly Toynbee and the great Miatta Fahnbulleh. Polly,
well, I'm partly here to say what a fantastic book this is. Absolutely great, and it's full of you know, every time there's another book about inequality, you can't learn anymore, but you really learn a lot more from this about the kind of society that we're living in, how wealth inequality, because we tend to talk much more about income inequality because it's easier, it's simpler, how wealth inequality damages democracy, damages any idea of a meritocracy. The idea that 10% of people own 50% of the wealth and the bottom 50% only have 5%. These things are outrageous. We are a country that has really become quite poor, with more and more of a very small number of people at the top who are very rich. And to define ourselves in terms of GDP or averages now makes no sense whatever. Every average is always misleading grossly. And certainly about our incomes and our wealth too as a country. I didn't know that, it says here, the 1% got 31 times more wealth in the last, just in the last few years, since 2010, than the rest of us. And that's an astounding fact. I had to think about it and think about it again to really believe it. And you talk about the super yachts and the Rolls Royces and the jets and all of that. I went to a rich fiesta a few months ago and watched them all buying their jets and their hydrofoils and things. It was quite a spectacle. I think that the idea of a wealth tax commission is a very good idea, because what this really needs is getting the information out there. People are misled time and time again by our mostly misleading press to think that any assault on any kind of wealth means that we're coming after them, coming after anyone with a house, anyone with a pension. They always manage to make an attack on the rich look like an attack on people with ordinary wealth. And I think a commission that really opened up the discussion, that had citizens, juries, that really got people talking, would help a lot, because people are incredibly ignorant about how we live now. We wrote a book a few years ago called Unjust Rewards, and we managed to get, the hardest bit of writing that book was managing to get into two rooms. We did 2 focus groups with a whole lot of city lawyers and with a whole lot of city bankers, and they were earning around, 5 to 10 million kind of level. And we asked them to fill out a questionnaire in the beginning to ask them what they thought other people earn and where they thought they were in the spectrum of things. I think we came right down to about 500,000 was the lowest earner, and asked them what they thought about distribution of wealth. They were completely clueless. We got Ipsos Mori to be there, put up a big screen and put their results up on a big screen compared with the actual facts. And they kept saying no. They could not believe how few people were above what was then the 40% tax. Only 10%? No, everybody we know. They could not believe that 90% of people in the country were on basic rate of tax. They were at that stage. And I think that sort of ignorance amongst the people, those are the people who manage our money, is what we need to break through so that people actually know what's really going on at the state that we're in. And they know a fair amount about poverty, but not very much, and they're told huge lies about it. Today, a Trussell Trust report came out saying 9 million are so poor that they have to regularly use food banks. Very glad that Labour's manifesto promised to end mass dependence on emergency food parcels. Look forward to see what mechanisms will be used. A third of children poor, a fifth in real hunger and hardship, which is just horrifying. You think, the children you see in the street, that's how many of them are actually hungry. Median earners are worse off than they were in 2007. I think people do know that. I think they knew that in the last election and what they were voting for about the cost of living, putting the cost of living up at the top, was what they could feel in their own pockets. But a lot of the stuff, particularly about inequality, people don't quite perceive. They see people around them. Everybody puts themselves on the graph much nearer the middle because they know somebody a bit richer, somebody a bit poorer, and they think they must be quite middling. These super rich that we interviewed in our focus group put themselves quite near the middle. They really did. Oh, I know, somebody who's got more than I've got. There was a big difference between those with yachts and those with yachts with crews. Very important. And so they could really pull out lots of things I can't afford, they would say. And then they would say, of course, people who've decided to be nurses, well, it's a vocation, isn't it? That's what they've chosen in life. That's why they're not paid very much. I think there are a lot of fears being put out about this. The frighteners are really being put on Rachel Reeves at the moment. You look right across the right-wing press every day. Bang, 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 she's going to do a truss and break the whole system. Or all the rich are going to leave. Which sounds extremely unlikely from all the research, some of it done by people, some of you in this room. I think there's been a real change in this country, and that the reason the government should be brave is I think we have become much more social democratic. Ever since COVID, all of the pollsters say that. The real change, that, mad as the Tories are, going on about small state, it is not what people want. They want more government, they want more public services. They may be ambivalent about taxes, but not nearly as much as they were. The last British Social Attitudes had 52% saying they wanted higher taxes themselves. So there is much to build on here if we're brave enough to put the case and let people know how things actually are, how they could be, and how essential it is that we do pay more taxes, get better services, and live a more equal life. And that's the book that will tell you all about it.
Inspiration for me for as long as I've been reading The Guardian, which is a very long time. But some of the most important work I draw was from the New Economics Foundation, and we are really blessed that the former leader of the New Economics Foundation is now one of our colleagues, not only in the Parliamentary Labour Party, but in His Majesty's government. It's a huge privilege for me to be able to welcome tonight, Miatta.
Delighted to be joining you this evening, and can I just say a massive thank you to you, Liam. At a time where I think the economy, the state of the economy, whether it's working for people, has been front of mind, you have been a really powerful voice arguing for brave ideas to confront the problems that we face at the very time that we need it. And I think your book is a brilliant book. I would recommend everyone buys it. But it's a really brave book, and a book that sees the challenges that it is, and is brave enough to proffer solutions about how we can respond at a time that we need it. And you know, for me, the context in which we're having this conversation, the context in which you publish this book is so important. You know, there is a growing consensus that the economy isn't working. You know, I ran an organisation that spent years talking about the fact that the economy wasn't working for people and wasn't working for our environment. But we see it viscerally now. We see it in our communities in a way that certainly in my lifetime we have never seen it. You know, we've just come out of the worst cost of living crisis, and you know, I'll take the experience of my own constituency. People are ground down. There is huge resilience, but their capacity to tolerate year in, year out, that sense that the system just doesn't work for them. And you know, for me, the thing that has made this cost of living crisis so profound is not, you know, yes, it was about price rises, but why it was so painful was that it was a massive hammer blow at the end of a really long period in which living standards were squeezed, unprecedented in that we've had 15 years in which living standards had not budged. You know, the basic social contract was year on year, the economy would do well, when it grew, people would benefit, living standards would improve. That is not what we've seen. And so that contract has been fundamentally broken. And you know, I think your analysis is a really powerful analysis, but you know, some of the stats that still wind me, when 1 in 3 of our children are now in poverty, at the time that we are seeing huge levels of wealth accumulation at the top, there is something profoundly wrong with that. And for me, the need to tolerate, the need to confront it is not just a question of people's lives and making that better, and that's what the Labour Party, that's what our party is about. But I think the social contract has been framed in such a way that is hugely dangerous for our politics. That sense of despair, it's not working for us and nothing can change it, I think is the most dangerous thing in our politics. So, you know, the responsibility at this point, I think is huge. I think we are at a pivot point where people's tolerance for the fact that the system isn't working for them, I think is fraying. People's willingness to stomach the fact the system isn't working for them, I think is at the boundaries of what they will tolerate. And so I think there is a massive responsibility now to take that mandate for change that we got in that election and think about how we respond. I don't think it's about half measures. I don't think it's about tinkering around the margins. I don't think the public will tolerate that. And so it's a big job, and there are vested interests that will argue that change is too difficult, that the status quo is what we have to embrace. And our job now are to come up with solutions and ideas about how we start rewiring the economy so it works for people, how we start fundamentally changing it so that that inequality that we've accepted is just the way it is. It's just the way the economy works, of course. Some people are doing great and other people are, that's just, I don't think we can accept it. I don't think we can tolerate it. And our job now is to think about a set of ideas over the course of the next 5 years, and I hope 10 years, 15 years, to fundamentally change that. And my plea, and the reason why I'm so passionate about your book is not just to sell it for you, but is because this is the time for ideas, and this is the time for brave ideas. Some will be politically easy, some won't be politically easy, but we've got to challenge ourselves to think about the set of things that we can put in place over the course of the next 5 to 10 years to fundamentally rewire the settlement. And the final thing I would say is, I think the thing that weighs heavily for me, I think the thing that weighs heavily for all of us, is I think mainstream ideas and mainstream politics is being tested in this parliament. If we fail to deliver change and we fail to show that we can confront the problems that people are facing with genuine ideas that are credible and sensible but drive things forward, I think people turn away from mainstream politics, and that terrifies me. So the stakes are incredibly high in a way that I don't think they've ever been before. And the weight of responsibility on all of us, on our thinkers, on our innovators, to say the bold ideas that we need to change the settlement is absolutely paramount. So thank you for leading the charge. Thank you for inspiring the rest of us to be as brave as you have. And thank you for offering solutions at a time that we absolutely need it.
so many people here in this place think the world of Miatta and think that actually one of the best decisions Keir Starmer took after the election was to make this woman a minister. So, just two more words from me. First, thank yous. No politician can make a speech without thanking their agent. No writer can make a speech without thanking their publisher. And no writer, politician, person can make a speech without thanking for the love of someone very special. So I would be really grateful if you would just join me in saying a huge thank you to George Capel, my agent, to Nigel Newson, my publisher from Bloomsbury, and to Sarah, my wife. So we're about to vote, and we're going to win the vote. That is just such a nice feeling after all of these long years. This book is dedicated to my constituents. They're the people that taught me everything I know in politics. They're the people that have been on the sharp end of this moral emergency that has seen literally homeless people die on the streets of my city and queues at food banks longer than anything that we've ever possibly imagined. At the same time, as sales of super yachts and luxury cars and private jets have been at an all-time high. When we see a moral emergency like that, it is incumbent on good people to look hard at the rules of our economy and to think hard about how we rewrite those rules. When the rules of our economy bend towards an arc of injustice, we know that something is wrong, and it's incumbent on people like us to think, how do we rewrite those rules, not to give some kind of supremacy to the marketplace, but to recognise the sovereignty of society. And so we will get all kinds of things wrong together over the next couple of years, over the next 2 terms. I hope this is a 2-term project, and that is desperately, why we need your help. Ultimately, we have to recognise that if we want to live in a free society, if we want to rebuild that amity that so many of us fear is in peril, we have to recognise that freedom needs security, and there is no security without wealth, not just for some, but for all. And that's why I wrote this book, and that's why I'm so grateful to you for helping me write it. Please stay in touch, and thank you for coming tonight.